The level of gun violence in Oakland is surging to troubling new heights. The shooting at Lake Merritt over the weekend brings the number of mass shootings that have happened in that city to 6. That's more than any other city and higher than the 4 it had last year. Also, since the start of the year, there have been 330 shootings. Now, with more on the efforts being made to stop the spread of violence in Oakland is Reverend Damita Davis-Howard, director of Oakland's ceasefire program. Reverend Howard, thank you so much for joining us. First, can you explain to us what the ceasefire program is?
So ceasefire is a strategy that uses the community, law enforcement services, and other partners in order to have respectful, direct communication with those who might be responsible for shooting and or being victims of gun violence in the city. It's a data-driven strategy that's been proven in many cities throughout the nation to actually have an impact and a positive effect on what's been happening in cities across the nation.
Reverend Harris, describe how you have these direct talks with the folks who are reportedly carrying out these types of offenses with violence involving guns.
So what we do is that we have at least 2 major ways in which we have direct communication with these young men. We call a custom notification, which is more like a one-on-one. And when I say one-on-one, it's an individual with a group, a partnership, usually somebody from the faith community, somebody from our services industry, and then also maybe somebody from law enforcement. And we talk to those young men, and what we do is try to outline for them their risks. And when I talk about risks, it's just that their exposure, how, being involved in gun violence, how it may affect their geographical environment, how it might affect their family, friends, neighbors, and how it might have a huge impact on themselves. And we get them to try to make a mindset change, not to turn on a dime, but to start to think about how they might do things differently so that the outcomes for their lives are also impacted in a positive way.
Reverend Howard, I wonder the kind of response that you get when you approach these young people. And I say that because I lost my 23-year-old nephew to gun violence 2 years ago. And I often wonder what goes through the mind of the person that pulled the trigger to take his life. What are you hearing from these young men, I assume here mostly in these cases, that are carrying out these crimes and using guns as a way to solve their issues?
So it actually runs the spectrum. There are a lot of folks who do want to make changes to their lives and don't know what the first step is. And we're there to try to help them make that first step. What we try to do is to get them connected to what I call mentors on steroids, or life coaches that are employed by a number of community-based organizations and the Department of Violence here in Oakland. And then they take and do a life plan with these individuals. Now, what they think, I've had one guy who is known to law enforcement and to the community to be a shooter, but he has started to listen and starting to meet with his life coach and start to think about how his life could be and should be different, and then mapping out a life plan for 3 months, 6 months, and then hopefully they'll get up to the place where they're talking about a year or more.
So basically what I'm hearing is a lot of the times these young men, they do not understand how to see the future beyond their current circumstance, so you help them to do that. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's exactly right. And also what I've heard from young men is that because of the level of gun violence in this city and in their environment, some of these young men are caught with guns or are actually put in a position where they have to use guns because they believe that if they get caught without it, they may be the victim of gun violence. And they weigh that against the legal ramifications of carrying a gun, and sometimes they feel like this is saving their lives. I too lost a number of folks really close to me to gun violence, including when I was much younger, my only brother, who was 8 years my junior. I've lost 2 second cousins who were in the car to get, one was killed, the other one was just wounded. And then also my son here in Oakland, going into a neighborhood store, was shot 4 times, none of them fatal or real serious, but nevertheless 4 bullets entered his body because he was in a grocery store where there was some other gun violence playing out really close. So this is actually something that I know personally about. This is something I feel, and this is something that I know that all of these young men want to be in the places and in the mindset that puts them in a place where they have to pull a trigger and shoot someone else.
Well, I'm certainly sorry to hear about the family members who you've lost to gun violence as well. If people are watching this and they want to try and make an impact here, does it take others from the community to step in, volunteering? How can the public help to kind of curb this type of violence across Oakland?
First of all, the public, if you know somebody who might have the propensity for gun violence, you should ask them and make them understand that they are loved by the city, they are loved by their community, and that there is help and a way out for them. Give them hope. That's what we do. I do want to point out that ceasefire as a strategy was not a law enforcement strategy. It was actually brought to the city of Oakland by community advocates, in which I was one at the time myself, because of the number of lives, brothers, sons, nephews that were lost to gun violence, and a cry out to the city officials, both the law enforcement and the political folks, that this had to stop. The value of life is too precious. And right now, on Sunday, the community is reaching out. They have every fourth Sunday, the faith community gather together and have a vigil in which they're asking those young men through a loud community voice to put down their guns. We love them. We want their lives to change. But first of all, they have to put down their guns. There are also other community activities, including things that are happening in San Antonio Park and at Liberation Park at Eastmont Mall, in which we are all asking and speaking out with a community voice. Not just the voice of law enforcement or politicians, but a community voice explaining to these young folks that we do love them and there is a way out. And if they'll just give us a little bit of faith, then we can steer them to some folks who really are invested in helping them change the trajectory of their lives.
Yeah, there are a lot of people out there that care about what they do with their futures and getting them on the right path. Reverend Damita Davis-Howard, Director of Oakland's Ceasefire Program, thank you for your insight and your work in the community.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.